Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jai Shrimati Tulsi ki jai
All right. Ready to go. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunyabehaute Gopi Janabalapa Kirivadana Ure Gopi Janabalapa Kirivadana Ure Yasodanandana Brajajanarandana Yasodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamuna Tira Banachare Yamuna Tera Banachare Jayo Radhu Madhuva Kunyabehahure Jai Radhu Madhuva Kunyabehahure Gopi Janabalapa Kirivadadhare Gopi Janabalapa Kirivadadhare Yere Bhare Yasudananjana Prajajanaranjana Yasudananjana Prajajanaranjana Yamuna Tera Banachare Yamuna Tera Banachare Jai Radham Madhuva Kunyabehahure Jai Radhu Madhava Kunyabehahure Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Paravidikacharya also Teta Sutashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shilahela Stakwari Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Garadha Shivasadi Gaur Vakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shishi Radhakrishna, Gopa Gopadan. Shaima Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai. Mathuranam Ki Jai. Jagadasami Ki Jai. Yamunamai Ki Jai. Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Samabheda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari 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 Bol. All right. So, anyway, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Budale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Samaniti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharni Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschachate Jatarni. So Om Magana Timananda Shah Gananjana Shalakya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So again, happy Janmashtami to everybody. And today we're going to speak about two different topics. Hopefully we're going to get enough time to do both of these things. One topic is basically what happens before Krishna appears, which is called the prequel. Prequel means what happened before. And after that, if we have time, we're going to be speaking. Anyway, this computer's not behaving itself. After that, we will be speaking about the impediments to achieving Braj Prema from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Krishna Samhita, and we're going to be mentioning the 18 demons that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that indicate different impediments to obtain Braj Bhakti, and also some additional demons. But first, we will speak about the events that occurred before Krishna appeared. Now we find in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we find Bhumi complaining because she's been overburdened by demoniac force of kings, right? Everybody remembers that. So why is she overburdened with a demoniac force of kings? And that is explained in the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're going to tell that story right now. Why the kings are, practically speaking, 99.9% demoniac. So here's the story. And it goes back quite a bit of time. Once upon a time, there's Durvasa Muni. And he offers Lord Indra a garland. And Indra doesn't pay much attention, and what does he do? He throws the garland under he gives it to his elephant, and the elephant throws it under the elephant's feet. And Durvasa, having a bad temper, that's why he's called Durvasa, he curses the demigods. And so this is a problem when we offend a devotee or offend a Brahmin, as we've been reading about in the Srimad Bhagavatam, you lose all good fortune. So, therefore, the demigods lost all good fortune. Not only Indra, but the rest of the demigods, because when there's an offense against a Vaishnava or a Brahmin, guess what? One's whole family, one's whole village, and here we find the whole heavenly, group of demigods. So the demons become much more powerful than the demigods, right? So then the demigods don't know what to do. And usually when they don't know what to do, they chant Hare Krishna. No, they go to Lord Vishnu. It's a standard procedure. Like we see this in the beginning of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, isn't it? Bhumi goes to Brahma. Brahma goes to the shore of the ocean of milk. And Lord Vishnu gives him a message. So they go to see Brahma, first of all. And then they go to Shvetadvipa again to get instruction from Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu says, all right, you're not going to be able to defeat the demons, so you should make a deal with them. And that deal is to churn the ocean of milk, and in this way tell the demons they're going to get a share in the Amrit, or the nectar. So anyway, the demigods, including Indra, go to Bali, who was in charge of the demons at that particular point. And they make an agreement. And to make a long story short, they bring Mount Mandara to churn the ocean of milk. And when they're bringing Mount Mandara, guess what happens? Everyone gets crushed because Mount Mandara is actually too heavy. So then again, they all go to Vishnu. So this is a standard procedure you find in the Bhagavatam. Whenever someone gets in trouble, what? You go to Vishnu. And some devotees, they ask for more trouble so they can go to Vishnu more often. Queen Kunti prays like that. Tatra, Tatra, Jagat Guru. Again and again, let these difficulties come so that apuna bhavadarsanam, so we won't see repeated birth and death. And so we will actually see you. And even it's described in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita that after the battle of Kurukshetra and everything was won by the Pandavas were actually dreaming up more problems so that Krishna would come back. So, anyway, Vishnu comes, and with the help of Garuda, he carries the mountain. And Garuda leaves at that point because they're going to use for the churning rod, not the rod, but the rope, Vasuki. And Vasuki is a serpent. He doesn't want to be around Garuda. So then there's this whole struggle. Who's going to hold the tail? Who's going to hold the head? The demons want to hold the head because they actually think the head is more auspicious than the tail, and then they get all the bad breath of the serpent. Wasn't very intelligent. So then Mount Mandara starts to sink, and guess what? They have to call for Lord Vishnu again. And Lord Vishnu comes as the what incarnation? Anyone know? The turtle, Kurma avatar. And then the mountain keeps toppling from one side to another, even though it has a place to rest on. Then Lord Vishnu has to come again and manifest 1,000 arms to hold the whole mountain steady. So in this way, Lord Vishnu is so many places in this particular, and Lord Vishnu is also helping with the demigods to churn the ocean. So they're churning, and many things come from the ocean. And one of the things that comes is the halhala, which is the poison which Lord Shiva takes. Surabhi cow, which the brahmanas take. Uchayashrava, the Airavata, which Indra takes. And so many things. Kaustuba jewel, which Lord Vishnu takes. Apsaras come from there. The goddess of fortune comes. Rama comes from there. And Lord Vishnu accepts her. And ultimately, Dhanvantari, the doctor incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, comes with what? The nectar. And so what happens, the demons do not uphold their portion of the deal. They take the nectar. Then guess what? Call for Vishnu again. It's like the 911 number. Isn't it? You're in trouble, 911. Ambulance comes. All right, call for Vishnu. So Vishnu comes. In what form? Anyone know? Mohini Murti. And the demons, they are completely entranced. They say, wow, can you divide up this nectar fairly? And she tells them, you can't trust me. And they're so entranced with the Lord's beauty in the Mohini Murti incarnation, they don't believe her. They say, oh, isn't that cute? We can trust you because you're beautiful. Not very logical, is it? I mean, there's a lot of beautiful things you can't trust. So then she takes the nectar, of course, gives it to the demigods, and your friend Rahu happens to take some. Then the demons get upset again, and they start fighting with the demigods after this whole thing. Of course, the demigods have taken this Amrit. They can't be killed, but they could certainly be injured. So the demons get very upset that they were tricked like that, and the demons start winning. Then they call for Vishnu again. It's interesting. Again and again and again, Vishnu is called when the demigods are in trouble. So Vishnu kills Kalanemi, who later on becomes who? No, Kamsa. Viprachiti becomes Jarasandha. Okay, so then Vishnu is killing all these demons, and then what happens is that Bali is knocked unconscious and he's brought back to consciousness. Then basically Indra is surrounded by the demons because Shukracharya is bringing them back to consciousness. And the demons come up with this weapon called the Namuchi weapon, which cannot be defeated by anything that's dry or wet. So then Indra hears, use foam weapon to kill this demon. So use a foam weapon, and the foam is not dry or wet. And then Indra starts fighting again, and almost all the demons are dead. And then Lord Brahma sends Narada to tell the demigods to stop fighting, because you got to have some demons. Because without demons, who is going to chant Hare Krishna? So that keeps the demigods from forgetting Vishnu. So then the demons are not all killed. Bali is again cured by Shukracharya. And then the demons become more powerful again, back and forth and back and forth. So Brahaspati tells Indra and the demigods to hide, because you're not going to be able to escape the demons. See how this battle is going back and forth. And Bali starts to do 100 Ashwamedha sacrifices to take over the whole universe and become the king of heaven. So then, eventually, we have the Supreme Personality of Godhead appearing as Lord Vamana, and Lord Vamana takes back not only the heavenly planets, but with his 3 steps, takes over the whole universe, pokes a hole in the universe, and the Ganges water comes down. And then the demigods take power again, become more powerful again. Then the demons are thinking, what are we going to do? How are we going to survive? So then they hatch this whole plan, and this is the end of my description of the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Then they hatch this whole plan to take birth on earth as kings. So that's how the 10th canto starts. 10th canto starts with Bhumi going to Lord Brahma and complaining about all the demons that had taken birth on the earth. So now we're going to talk about the demons. Not all the demons. We're not going to talk specifically about Jarasandha or Kamsa. We're going to talk about the Braj demons. And in the context of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Krishna Samhita. Okay. So the title of this is Obstacles to Obtaining Braj Bhakti. Oops. Actually, hold on a second. Give me 1 second to set this up. Okay. All right. That's good. And this is from the Krishna Samhita by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in which he describes the different demons in Krishna's pastimes and how these different demons, are connected with anarthas. And these are the anarthas that we have to overcome if we are going to obtain pure devotional service, and particularly if we're going to be entering into Vrindavan. As Narottama Das Thakur prays, Vishaya Chadiya Kabe, Shuddha Habi Mana, Kabe Hama, Kabe Hama Rabba, Sri Vrindavana, that when one's mind is pure, then one's mind reveals Vrindavan and one can understand Vrindavan. So in order to have a pure mind to enter into Vrindavan, one has to get rid of something called anarthas. Anarthas means unwanted things, and basically we should look in our hearts and see the unwanted things that we have, and some of them are kama, krodha, mada, matsarya, bharya, bhaya, lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, fear, and these are barriers to obtaining the goal in life, which is Krishna consciousness. So, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we have this whole progressive path of devotional service mentioned, beginning Ado, Shraddha, Tata, Sadhusango, Ta, Bhajana, Kriya, Tato, Narta, Nivritti, Shat, Tato, Nishta, Ruchis, Tata, Ata, Shakti, Tato, Bhavas, Tata, Prema, Bayunjati, Sadakamayam, Premna, Pradabhave, Bhavat, Kramaha. And to translate that for you, in the beginning, one comes to Krishna consciousness because they have a little faith, a little trust. And when you have this little faith or trust or interest, preliminary and not full faith, then you begin to associate with the devotees. Sadhu Sango Ta. And when you associate with the devotees, which is very important, then you begin to do things the devotees do. Just like the first time I walked into a Krishna consciousness temple, I didn't know what was happening. But I saw everyone bow down. And I never bowed down in my whole life. But I didn't want to look out of place. So I bowed down. Didn't know what I was doing. I bowed down. And then everybody started running around a bush. Kind of unusual. Never seen that my whole life. Everyone started running around the bush. So I ran around the bush too. Everyone started watering the bush. I started watering the bush. Everyone started chanting Hare Krishna. I started chanting Hare Krishna. So that's Sadhu Sango Ta. And then you engage in what? Bhajana Kriya. And then by engaging in Bhajana Kriya, even though you don't know what's happening in the beginning, actually the first day I joined the movement, I basically didn't know what was happening. I liked it philosophically, but I couldn't really relate to a lot of things. It was completely different than the culture I was brought up in. So in any case, then after a while, anartha nivritti, you get a taste of these things. The anartha nivritti is shot. The anarthas, unwanted things, go away. And then from time to time, as the anarthas are going away, you get a spurti. Anyone here has had a spurti? Everyone, I think, has had a spurti who's performing some, isn't it? Spurti means like one day, like, it's just like the doors of perception. Sorry to use this expression. I'm sure Christopher will appreciate it. One day, the doors of perception get open for a few seconds. You can see, you wipe your glasses for a few seconds, and you say, wow, that's Krishna. That's Mayapur. That's Vrindavan. That's Tulsi Maharani. Wow. You get a wow moment. It's a spurti. And so that happens in the progress, or the process, of bhajana kriya. So then you get rid of the unwanted things, and when you get rid of the unwanted things in your heart, after that, you become nishta. You become steady in devotional service because you have more of a taste. Then you have ruchi, a taste, and a shakti. Become completely attached to Krishna, completely detached from the material world. And then you get this stage called bhava. Bhava means you experience like extreme emotions. Anyway, these are described in different categories by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And then finally you arrive at the stage of prema. But in order to progress further than bhajana kriya, you have to work on these anarthas. And so these particular anarthas we're going to mention are very interesting. The first verse in this particular chapter of the Krishna Samhita, we're going to read this verse. Etasyam braja bhavanam sambhutho pratibandhaka astadasha vidashanti shatrava priti dushaka. There are 18 obstacles or enemies to the wealth of bhavas in Braja. These obstacles pollute priti, the priti, love of Krishna. So we're going to talk about these 18 obstacles in relationship to demons. And here's the Adi demon. Adi demon? Who's the Adi demon? That means first demon. Anyone know? No. We're talking about in Krishna's pastimes. Putana. Wow. So there's Putana, and as we know, she put poison on her breast, and she was sent by Kamsa to kill Krishna. And Krishna looked at her. She assumed the form of a very beautiful lady. And Krishna looked at her and considered her to be his mother. And he closed his eyes as he was sucking on her breast for several different reasons. One is he didn't want to see it when he was killing a woman. Anyway, and so then he sucked out her life air and she passed away. So who is Putana in terms of the narcissist? Putana represents someone called the pseudo-guru. Pseudo-guru means false guru. Deceitful, I'm going to read some of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's statements. So-called guru who preaches sense gratification. Ever heard the saying, yatomat tatopat? I'm okay, you're okay. One time I was sitting in class, and Prabhupada was giving class. This was in Los Angeles many years ago. And Prabhupada said, referring to this particular person who wrote a book, I'm okay, you're okay, or Yatomat Tatopat, which is coming from one of the Indian gurus, so-called gurus. Prabhupada said, we say, I'm okay, you're not okay. And as soon as everyone heard that, everyone said, Jai Prabhupada, because they would always say Jai Prabhupada, whatever Prabhupada said. So a pseudo-guru, a person who is engaged in some sort of Krishna consciousness, but has not realized the course of pure devotional service and tries to give instructions to his disciples beyond his own understanding. In other words, we have a certain adhikar. And there's different varieties of gurus. Even according to the acharyas, someone who is a kanishta adhikar, he can be a guru, but he can't bring people to a very high level. Now, what do we do about ISKCON? We have His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, and we accept Prabhupada as our Shiksha Guru. We may have many Shiksha Gurus. And by associating with Srila Prabhupada, we are assured to come to the highest level. So, also, the pseudo guru does not only refer to another person, but it can refer to one's own so-called spiritual guide. In other words, your ego, your mind, or your contaminated intelligence. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, in the form of the mundane empiric reasoning. That means, empiric means sense perception, how you interpret what you see, what you hear, what other people see, books that you've read. This is also considered to be like Putana. In other words, your mind can be like Putana too. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, reading from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, says, the person who understands Ragamarg and who teaches the highest goal while judging the qualification of disciple is the authorized guru. Interesting statement. Someone who can teach the method of achieving the highest goal of Krishna consciousness. The guru does not know the path of Rag or teaches, or the guru who through knowing the path of Rag teaches without consideration the qualification of the disciple is a faulty guru. In other words, you may have someone, a bona fide spiritual master who knows or established on a high level, knows how to teach the path of achieving pure Krishna consciousness, but he teaches inappropriately to a particular individual who doesn't have the adhikar or the right to hear that level of devotional service. That's also a bona fide, a bogus guru. Okay, so that's Putana. Hopefully we have enough time to go through all the demons. I love these demons. So the second demon is the wind demon. Trinavarta, who tried to pick up Krishna. Krishna became very heavy. Krishna the demon fell to the ground, body smashed, and died. So sometimes we hear that someone is just like, what? A bag of wind. So Trinavarta represents this sort of a bag of wind. Bad logic, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And if one has bad logic, then, and we're not talking just about, the rules and regulations of logic that you may learn in school. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says the logic used in some of the darshanas, we're talking about the Shad-darshanas, also Buddhism, and by logicians, is an obstacle represented by the whirlwind manifesting the bhavas, the obstacle to Rajbhav. So, went ahead. I don't know why that happened. And according to the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, here's the last life of this particular demon. In his last life, he was a king named Sahasraksha, who was cursed by Durvasa Muni for appearing before Durvasa Muni naked while the king was enjoying with his 1,000 wives. He was cursed to remain on earth for 100,000 years and then be killed by Lord Krishna. Here's the next demon. Next demon, of course, is Shakatasura, the cart demon. And Krishna kicked him, and then the cart fell in so many different pieces. And Shakatasura represents someone who's like a mudha, the load-carrying mentality arising out of old and bad habits. And he represents lethargy, dullness, and false pride. Krishna rectifies this consciousness by kicking it aside. So we take shelter at Krishna's lotus feet. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a quote from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Those who, not understanding the essence of Braj Bhakti, but are busy in carrying this burden, cannot experience rag. Therefore, when one breaks the cart of oppression of one's intelligence in the form of carrying a load, one removes the third obstacle. So, there's a quote from the Garga Gita. He had a body made of air. He tried to make the cart fall on the Lord's head. In his previous life, he was a demon, the son of Hiranyaksha, named Utkacha. He went to the hermitage of Lomasa Muni, broke some trees there, and was cursed to become bodiless. He then fell down at the Muni's feet and begged for mercy. The Muni then told him that in the next Manvantara, he would be touched by the foot of the Lord and would be liberated. So you see, this is a common story, that when someone gets cursed by some great personality, the curse ends up as a benediction. So the next, well, the same demon, the next demon is Vatsasura. Vatsasura, of course, is the calf demon. And we know that Krishna took this demon, whirled him around by his tail, and killed this demon. So this is the fault or the anartha of immaturity. And this is from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Those who, not understanding the essence of Braj Bhakti but are busy carrying this burden, cannot experience rag. Therefore, when one breaks the cart of oppression of one's intelligence in the form of carrying a load, one removes this third obstacle. So that's the Vatsasura. The next demon is Bakasura. Bakasura is like a crane, and Krishna took his beaks and bifurcated his beaks and killed him in this way. And I'll read the Sanskrit for this. This is actually interesting in Sanskrit. Fifth demon. Panchame dharma kapatyam nama parada rupakam baka rupi mahadurto vaishnavanam virodaka. So the fifth obstacle is called false dharma, an offense to the name represented by Bakasura, who opposes the devotees. Those who, not understanding their qualification by a faulty guru's teaching, perform worship of a higher qualification than they have the adhikar for, are cheated. But those who understand that they are unqualified and take support of higher qualities to gain respect and money are called fake. If one does not reject this activity, rag cannot appear. So that's Bakasura. Next demon is called Agasura. And this Agasura represents the sixth obstacle, which is the offense of intense cruelty. And without showing compassion to all beings, without showing compassion to all beings, gradually rag will disappear, since compassion can never be separated from rag. In other words, compassion for other living all living entities can never be separated from rag. Compassion to jivas and bhakti for Krishna are not different. And of course, we understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's principles, most important teaching principles, for Namaruchi, Vaishnava Seva, and Jiva Doi. So this Jiva Doi is very important. In order to cultivate Jiva Doi, one has to cultivate something called humility, a dainu. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, actually, Sanatana Goswami in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita states that humility, dainu, is non-different than prema. Without prema, you cannot have humility, and without humility, you cannot have prema. So that's Agasura. And then, of course, we have the Brahma Vimohana Lila. Now, Lord Brahma, of course, is not a demon. But Lord Brahma became bewildered. So one becomes bewildered by deliberating, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, on many different scriptures. Actually, the acharyas tell us that one should become expert in a few scriptures rather than trying to become expert in many, many different scriptures or knowing many, many different scriptures. One should know the essence of the scriptures. That's why Srila Prabhupada emphasized that we study Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and of course the Upanishad, Nectar of Instruction. Everything is in those books. So one has to be careful of becoming too proud of one's education. And it says also, one deliberates on scriptures which have many philosophies. The truth attained by samadhi will disappear. In other words, Lord Brahma had previously had the absolute truth revealed to him at the beginning of creation, and he composed what? The Brahma Samhita. But he became bewildered. Of course, this was Yogamaya, caused by deliberation on the Vedas. Fooled by illusion, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Brahma developed doubts about Krishna Tattva. Wow. So this is the demon of being bewildered by reading and understanding too much. The next one is Dhenukasura. Dhenukasura, of course, is the donkey demon. And this donkey demon, of course, was killed by Lord Balaram. And the coward boys had smelled the fruits growing in the Talavan forest, and they begged Krishna to go there to get them some of those fruits, and Krishna Balaram went, and basically they threw all the donkeys up in the trees, and the tall fruits fell to the ground. So this demon represents gross material intelligence. Sorry, keeps going ahead. It represents gross material intelligence personified by the donkey. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, fine intelligence is very necessary for Vaishnava Tattva. Persons who make a sampradaya and preach while mutilating the indivisible Vaishnava Tattva have gross intelligence. This gross intelligence is Dhenukasura, with the form of an ass. The ass cannot eat the sweet tal fruit and also prevents others from eating the fruits. The meaning is that persons of gross intelligence cannot understand the spiritual works written by the great previous acharyas of the Vaishnava Sampradayas and do not allow others to understand them. So, in other words, one may read the books of the past acharyas and misinterpret them and give people an impersonal or wrong interpretation of the acharyas' literatures. Next is the demon Arishtashura. Arishtashura represents those who give up the rules of bhakti. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in other words, they deviate from the regulative principles or from their vows of initiation. And it says, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says it's like those who are like bulls which enjoy the senses. And this is the 9th obstacle. Many persons of weak heart give up vidhi marg, means vidhi marg means the rules and regulations, Vaidhi, just to explain. There's Vaidhi Bhakti, and there's Rag Bhakti, or Raganuga Bhakti. And so it says, many persons of weak heart give up vidhi marg and enter raga marg. Not being able to realize spiritual rag within the Atma, they conduct themselves like a Rishtashura, cultivating rag distorted by illusion. So one has to be very careful, again, to understand one's position in devotional service and not try to go higher than one has the right to go higher. And Prabhupada described this like trying to jump across the ocean, like Hanuman jumped across the ocean, when you don't have the potency. And of course, Prabhupada has his famous quote, big, big belly, big, big monkey, sail on jumping, melancholy. Next, of course, that's the same demon. Next demon is the Kaliya. Of course, Kaliya ultimately is a devotee. So this demon, or this personality, represents, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, villainy seen in Kaliya the snake. And this is opposition among sampradayas, which is like the forest fire. The snake of villainy pollutes the Jamuna, form of the devotee's melted heart at all times. One must remove this 10th obstacle of hostility among sampradayas. So what does that mean? That means there's many Vaishnava, there's 4 basic Vaishnava sampradayas. So we don't criticize amongst the different Vaishnavas. And even within the Gaudiya Sampradaya, we have to be very careful about criticizing other Vaishnavas who come from other lines within the Gaudiya Sampradaya. So Kaliya represents that. Next demon is Palambasura. Palambasura is the 12th obstacle, and he represents the impersonalist who steals the soul. And this impersonalist, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, is an expert thief that enters among the devotees disguised as a devotee. Personalists merge their Atma into Brahman. Searching for liberation or merging is a great fault in the form of stealing the Atma. Since in this state, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, there is no bliss at all. The jiva has no benefit at all in this state, and Brahman itself has no goal in such merging. If one has faith in this philosophy, one accepts the whole created world as false, assuming Brahman to be completely indifferent. Gradually, the person becomes doubtful about Brahman's existence. Thinking deeply, he then thinks that the jiva is non-existent and imagines a baseless ignorance. And of course, that's like voidism. So this is the demon of Palambasura. And then we have Indra, who's not a demon, but Indra actually tried to kill the residents of Vrindavan by inundating them with rain. And he represents the mistake of thinking that it is good to perform demigod worship. Wow. Also the fault of thinking, I am supreme, I am worshipable. So, what do we mean by that? One should respect the demigods, but at the same time, to confuse the demigods with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Yastu Narayanam Devam, Brahma Rudradi Daivata, Smitve Naiva, Viksheta, Sapashandi Bhavet Dhruvam. This is, of course, a statement of the Vedic literatures. If one thinks Narayan and the demigods are equal to Narayan, one becomes a Pashandi, or an atheist. So if one respects the demigods as devotees of Krishna, like Lord Shiva, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, then that is the proper consciousness. What's that? Well, I'm going to need it. I need a lot more in 5 minutes, so it's not a problem. So that's, anyway, that's Indra, who thought that I should be worshipped. And then in the beginning, Nanda Maharaj was thinking, what? The demigods should be worshipped. Indra should be worshipped if we want to get correct rainfall. So this pastime illustrates this particular fault of worshiping the demigods. I mean, that may strike some of you here. You know, we worship the demigods. If you think they're equal, then you become a Pashandi. I used to use this verse. It's one of my favorite verses when I would go to preach in Hindu centers, but then I never got invited back again. So it's only a verse I use amongst the devotees. Dangerous verse. But Prabhupada would quote that verse quite often. Next, one of our favorite demons is called Vyomasura, who carried what the coward boys and put them in a cave and put a stone on the caves. And so this demon represents the 14th obstacle of a devotee in obtaining priti for Krishna. And this demon is theft and lying. I mean, how many times do we tell a lie? We should not lie. We should always tell the truth. Very, very important. The only time you can lie is to save someone's life. And that's it. Or if you have to go somewhere to preach and they don't allow devotees. Like one time I went to Trinidad, and at that point they didn't want devotees in the country, and they asked me if I was a devotee. When I came through immigration, I said, no, what's that? And they let me in the country. So we should not lie. We should be truthful, and also truthful to ourselves. This also involves knowing our own level of advancement in devotional service in our adhikar. You know, many times we think of ourselves, we think more of ourselves. In other words, we think that we're on a higher level than we actually are. So we should cultivate this humility like the acharyas do. I mean, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, even though he was on the highest level of devotional service, writes this wonderful poem, Gopinath, Mama Nameda Nashuno, Vishaya Durjana. Now, he's not just making that up. He actually feels like that. Gopinath, I'm devoid of all good qualities. I'm a bad person. So one has to be really internally honest, not just externally honest. And Vyomasura represents this dishonesty. And it also indicates, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the need to give up bad association, and who Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls thieves and rascals, as well as cheating imposters who disguise themselves as devotees. You know, sometimes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says sometimes amongst, in the Krishna conscious society, you may find Kali Chelas, you know, disciples of Kali. Of course, that doesn't mean we go around saying, you were a Kali Chela, or you were a Kali Chela. But still, we have to be careful about who we associate with. Next, interesting, not a demon, but, you know, devotee, but Varuna, who stole Nanda Maharaj when Nanda Maharaj was bathing at what was considered an improper time. So it's bewilderment. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's statement. Bewilderment of the heart of Nanda on attaining Varuna's abode must always be avoided. In other words, when Nanda Maharaj went to Varuna's abode, he thought, wow, this is great. And he actually became, this is, of course, Yogamaya. He actually became enamored by Varuna's abode, how wonderful it was. So we become bewildered sometimes by certain opulence, either money, opulence, stuff like that. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that sometimes people become bewildered and they take intoxication. He says people involved in the bhava of Braj never take intoxicants. He also states that this pastime represents the misconception that the bliss of devotional service can be enhanced by indulging in wine and other intoxicants. Interesting. I've actually seen devotees deviate with this misunderstanding. They thought they could chant Hare Krishna better with more ecstasy if they took some form of intoxication. So that's Varuna. Next demon is Shankachuda. And Shankachuda, that's the 16th obstacle, is attachment to fame and enjoying matter on the pretext of bhakti. And of course it's mentioned that as one advances in bhakti, one may get some material opulences. Like sometimes we hear Nadanam, Najanam, Nasundarim. But as one advances in devotional service, people start to praise you, you start to get followers, etc. And that's a cause of anarthas, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur talks about different causes of anarthas. You know, there's pious activities, impious activities, offenses, and even bhakti itself, the byproducts of bhakti. And, whoops, it seems to go ahead by itself. Those who perform activities with a desire for position are one type of pretender. In other words, if I join the Krishna consciousness movement and think, I want to eventually become what? Temple president. Eventually I want to become GBC. Eventually I want to become guru. What's next? Acharya. What happens after that? God. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that's the final snare of Maya. The one actually, one may not call themselves God, but one may think that they're absolute and all their different feelings, observations are all absolute. You know, one time, one of my godbrothers said to me, I've never made a mistake. I made one mistake, he said, in my whole Krishna conscious career. He said, my one mistake was I thought I had made a mistake. Of course, he said it jokingly, I mean, obviously. So, we have to be very, very careful as we perform devotional service of being conscious of this Dhanam, Janam, Sundarim. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu praised the Dhanam, the Janam, and Sundarim, Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye, Mama Janmani, Janmani Shre, Bhavatad Bhakti, Hai Tiki Twaye. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also states, the killing of this demon represents Krishna's killing the desire for name and fame and the association, improper association of the opposite sex. So that's Shankachuda. And the next one is the snake that swallowed up Nanda Maharaj. So this is interesting. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, as one advances in devotional service, you get a lot of bliss. And as you get a lot of bliss, you have a tendency to want to merge into that bliss. You know, just like be absorbed in that bliss. You know, one time devotees said, I just